Let's start from the two dots. Gimel Mid Beis. We started this yesterday. Amar Abaye, about a third of the way down, quarter of the way down. Amar Abaye Mishpeder of Nachman. Amas sukkah v'amas mavui ba'ama bas chamisha. Amas klayim ba'ama bas shisha. Okay, when you talk about an amma in various areas of halacha, when you talk about amma in the realm of sukkah and in the realm of mavui, the amma is a 5 tefach amma. Okay, it's a much smaller amma. And if you talk about it in the realm of klayim, ammas klayim ba'ama bas shisha. In the klayim realm, it's a 6 tefach amma. And we already said yesterday with the Rashis that we did that basically we're talking about being machmir in either area where sometimes you talk about, let's say, the height of the sukkah, how far high can you go? Okay, so we're making a leeway of a maximum. Well, clearly, if you're going to go to 5 tefach amma, it's going to lower the maximum. So it's being machmir. You don't have as much leeway as you thought you had. And if it's in the other direction of a minimum, okay, and so don't think you can go this small. If you go to a 6 tefach amma, you're increasing the minimum. So that's being machmir in that regard. So depending on what direction you're going in, as far as what the context of the halach is, a 5 tefach amma could be a chumrah, a 5 tefach amma could be a kula, and a 6 tefach amma could be a kula or chumrah, depending on the circumstances. So basically what Abaye is saying in the name of Rav Nachman...
Do we make that distinction nowadays between the 5 and the 6?
Generally not. Right, because we'll see other opinions anyway that it doesn't go that far. Let's see. There are anyway so many machlokas about what an amma is between 1.5 and 2 feet, 1.5 feet to 2 feet. So it's sort of, I guess, covered anyway within these differences. Okay, so mavi ba'ama bas chamish l'mayachad. Let's continue. So mavi being is 5 tefach amma. In what regard are you saying this? Well, how is it relevant? Lagovo ulupirtatz mavi. Okay, so clearly in the issue of height, by saying you can go 20 amas, is it 20 times 6 tfachim, which is what, 120 tfachim? Or is it 20 times 5 and only 100 tfachim? How high can you go? Well, clearly, if I'm telling you can only go 100 tfachim, that's a chumrah as opposed to the leeway of 120. Same thing with the pirtas mavi. The break in the mavi could be 10 amas. Is it 60 tfachim? Or is it 50 tfachim? Sometimes it's only 50 tfachim. That's a chumrah. You don't have the right to go to a 6 tefach amma. That's all nice. That's all fine and dandy when it comes to the height and the break, the width of the break of the wall. Okay, he says meshech mavui ba'arba amos dilakula. But when you say a general rule that all areas of mavi are 6 tefach amos, well, what about the minimum shear of what requires a mavi? Okay, so if I tell you that it's a 4 amos requires a mavi, now is that 4? That means if it's less than that, you don't need it. So is it 24 tfachim or is it 20 tfachim? So if it's 20 tfachim, that means less than that doesn't require a special accommodations or a special adjustment of the mavi, and that would be a kula. So it's going in the wrong direction here. So your rule doesn't seem to hold out. So one more time, Freti Gemara, he says, "Va'ika meshech mavi barba amos," still a kula. If I adopt this rule of a 6 tefach amma on the minimum share of a mavi, it's going to end up being a kula if I say 20 amos as opposed to 24. Okay, so either Commander Amar Barbar Tfachim, I could either say that Abaye in the name of Nachman follows the opinion that says it's not Dalar Amos that requires a mavui and an adjustment and a fixing up, but rather it's 4 Tfachim. So I guess the machlok is what's the minimum shear of a mavui that requires all of these, fixing up to allow you to carry there. So if you hold 4 tfachim, then clearly the amos shear doesn't play a role. So if Abaye is in that mindset that the minimum shear of a mavui that requires fixing is a 4 tefach mavui, clearly then it didn't fit into the ruling, and it's no problem. That's one easy answer. So there's no example of a 5 tefach amma that would end up being lakula. That's one answer. Or the or you can say that really indeed he holds like the one who says 4 amos is the shear for a mavui. So if it's 4 amos going 6 tefachim should be the chumrah as opposed to the kula. Vrov Amos Komar. And what he meant to say when he talked about a Mavui is the majority of cases. The majority of Amos that are relevant to a Mavui are measured by 5 tefach amos, as opposed to 6 tefach. Does it mean every case? No, the majority. So 2 out of 3 is a majority, so he went with the majority factor, leaving the other case sort of, I guess, up to your imagination. But you wouldn't go, but obviously in that case of the minimum share, you wouldn't go that way. The minimum share, you'd go to 6 tefach amos. Okay, let's take a look at Rashi now. We're going to do this for all of the 3 scenarios we brought up. Scenario number 1 was Mavui, then we have Sukkah, now we have Klayim. So we're going to go through all 3 through the same methodology of analyzing whether it makes sense. Are there any other cases that deviate from this rule in any which way? So let's do Lamai. I think we're up to Lamai Hilchasa, right? So Lamai Hilchasa Rashi, Misharim Elu Shabamavi Piketano Seteve Chumra. What are the halachas that we're measuring these amos in a smaller measure that it would be considered a chumrah? So number 1 is Lagova, right? So the clear, obvious ones are for the height. Hanach es shem shuskru, that which we said you're allowed to go up to 20 amis, the pasal Bagova, to start making the sukkah pasal. If it's too high, I mean the mavi pasal one, if the korah is too high, mechi ika chaf amis ketanos pasli. When there are only 20 amis, small amis becomes pasal. If you go more than so it's 100 tefachim, right? If you go with it's 5 tefach amma, if you make the korah more than 100 tefachim off the ground, you are no longer in a valid mavi. That's a chumrah, because I thought I had 120. I thought I had a 6 tefach amma to work with, but I don't. I only have 100 tefachim. I don't have 120 tefachim. Okay, that's number 1. The Kaimelan by Pirka that we're going to, we established in this parak, Pirtzatz Mavi Biyud Amis Pasale, right? That the break of a Mavi, that's if it's too wide, more than 10 Amis, you need to narrow it down to make it narrow. The walkway needs to be narrower. Okay, we'll come of Nachman the Be'eser Amis Katanas Pnifsel, that it becomes possible if it's more than 50. 10 times 5 is 50 tfachim, and if it goes to 51 tfachim, you're in trouble. Oh, I thought I had 60 tfachim. I can go to 61 or 60 in an inch. No, but I can't. Now it's the shear is 50. These are both chumras. So the Rav Nachman statement by Abaye makes perfect sense, that this is a chumradic approach to get you, more, give you more narrow leeways to not to make any mistakes. For Gemara, but wait a minute, Va'ika, next Rashi, big Rashi, Va'ika, Amo Shuskru B'meshach Mavui, Dalar Amos, but there's also a halacha that the measure of a Mavui is Dalar Amos. V'morcho Pachos Midalar Amos Pasalei. It becomes invalid, okay, if in other words, you can't rectify. Let me say it a little bit clearer maybe than I said it before. You can't rectify Mavui. You can't make a Mavui, you can't correct it if it's not a shear. It's not so much of needing correction. It can't be corrected. Right? A mavi that's less than Dalar Amos is not called an alleyway that you can correct it. As we say later on, okay, if it was less than 10 tfachim, okay, you want to make it bigger to make it into a workable mavi. But how far do you have to sort of dig and open it up to make it a potential valid mavi? But mishchay in its length, Rav Yosef Amadalat Fachim, Abaye Amadalat Amis. Okay, so it's a machlokes how long the mavi needs to be able to be turned into a walkable area to carry it. Okay, the meshach mavi being in Dalan Amis, he holds it requires Dalan Amis. Less than Dalan Amis can't be rectified. So here, okay, ubahani amos asim milsad Rav Nachman lakula. Here, if you're going to say that, all I need is so 4 amis is what? Either 24 tfachim or 20 tfachim. So if you say that, if it's 20 tfachim, you can rectify. That's great. I thought I needed 24 tfachim. I thought I needed, to be chumra, to be machmer, to go to 6 tefach amma, and then you need 24 tfachim of alleyway to be able to make into a mavi. Here, but I see it's a corner of Nachman. It sounds like you have a 5 tefach amma. All you need is 20. And in this case, l'kula. It's a leniency, the machshalei b'dalar amas ketanos. To say it's valid, right, on a minimum shear, going with the 5 is a kula as opposed to a chumrah. So did Abaye mean this as well? Did Abaye mean that you can actually be You can go with the sheer 5 tefachim even for this. So not so. No, don't fall into that trap. That's not what Abaye meant. Either Kaman Yama Meshach Mavi Barbat Tefachim Sfir Leit Rav Nachman. Okay, either Rav Nachman holds of the sheer of 4 tefachim. V'yiskru Amos b'shir Mishchai. Okay, we'll pluk the Baiver of Yosefi. So it could be Rav Nachman sides with Rav Yosef in this area. So that's why he said his halacha carte blanche. He said his halacha across the board because according to him, there was no scenario where you're by measuring it with 5 tefachim, you're being makel because he never held of the 4 amis shear. He held of the 4 tefach shear, in which case amis never played a role, and it wasn't a problem. Okay, you can go, but obviously you can imagine Abai wouldn't have liked that so much. Well, I mean, Rav Nachman maybe said what he said, but for Abai to quote Rav Nachman and then have it that Rav Nachman doesn't even hold like Abai when it comes to this halach of Mavi. Probably is not, the smoothest thing for Abaye to accept. So coming up with another alternative does make a lot of sense. And the other alternative is Avad Rav Nachman can agree with Abaye, not a problem. But what did Rav Nachman mean? He meant in most cases where Amos are measured in a Mavi, the shear is 5 tefach Amos. That's what he meant. In the majority of the cases, it's 5 tefachim. But is it 5 tefachim in all cases? No. Because obviously in the minimum shear of a mavi, what's required to allow you to make a mavi work, in that case you have to be 24 tefachim, and we're going to go with a 6 tefach amma. So Rov Amos had a scars with mavi kamer of Nachman levi ketanos. In the majority of cases, it's a smaller shear of the 5 tefach amma. I call amos mavi kamer. It's not referring to all of the amos, but only the majority of them. Okay, so we just did now, we're going to do again 2 more times. Okay, so we just have to have patience and plow through this. Okay, let's continue. So we dealt with issue number 1, Mavi. Let's now go to issue number 2, Sukkah.
But your answer there is it could go either way.
Well,
you have no definite rule. It goes one way, it goes the other way.
Well, the definite rule is that whenever you're dealing with anything of these 3 realms, you always go with the Chumr Dika Amma. Okay, so we didn't deviate from that fundamental rule. You always go to Chumr. Now, does it end up that every case of Mavi goes with this rule of 5 Tfachim, or only the majority? That's sort of a side issue. But in other words, we didn't deviate from the fundamental principle that we're always going to be Machmir. So if there's a shear on the minimum shear Mavi of 4 Amis, then there too will be Machmir, but there the Chumr will be to go with 6 Tfachim. Okay, there the chumrah will be to go to a bigger shear. So depending on what the issue is, chumrah can either be 5 amis or it could be 5 tefachim or 6 tefachim. But it's consistent in that approach. You're always going to be machmir to get you to take the strictest approach, making sure you've covered yourself absolutely. So when it comes to the height and the width, it's a 5 tefach amma. When it comes to the minimum shear, if you follow Abaye, it's a 6 tefach amma. But the rule is consistent. It's always being machmin. Now let's see about sukkah. Okay, yeah, Baruch Hashem. He says, okay, sukkah. Okay, amma sukkah ba'amma bas chamisha l'may hilchasa. So this next category of sukkah, where we say that we measure with a 5 tefach Amma, what is, in what regard? L'gova or l'dofen akuma. Right? So there are 2 principles of sukkah that we're familiar with. Number 1 is, you can make a sukkah up to 20 ammas. So is that 100 tfachim? Or is it 120 tfachim? So number 1, don't think you can make a sukkah 120 tfachim off the ground, which would be a 6 tefach amma. No, you'd only make it 100 tfachim off the ground, exactly like a mavi. Also, dofen akuma. What's dofen akuma? That you can have schach. And if the schach is far away from the wall, and in LA we have every possible concoction of a sukkah that you can imagine, people in their backyard come up with all these. So a lot of people end up using a dofen akuma. It means you have a wall, the wall bends, it continues out this way, right? It's some kind of overhang protrusion. You put your schach up against the wall. So even though this wall is far away from the schach, which is right here, but still we're going to use this wall as one of the 3 walls for a sukkah. Now, how do you do that? You do that through your imagination, bending the wall and seeing this as a continuation of the wall, and the wall does hit the schach at the end of the day because you've bent it. So it works. But how much can this be? This could be 4 amas. So this wall that bends, if it's more than 4 amas, no way, you can't use this wall anymore for your schach because it's too far away. But 4 amas, which kind of amma? Is it a 5 tefach amma or a 6 tefach amma? So if you can go, if I'm allowed to be 24 tefachim away, I've got more leeway to play games with the wall, by my pool or something. But if it's only 20 tefachim away, you got less room to maneuver. So here he's saying it has to be in these two cases we're going to be machmir to call it a 5 tefach amma, and all you have is in this case dalar amas of 20 tefachim to play with, as opposed to 6 tefachim of 24 tefachim to play with.
About 6 feet.
What?
If you're dafin akuma, you have to be within 6 feet of the wall.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, so these two cases are clearly legit and fit perfectly into Abaye's rule that you're going to go with a 5 tefach amma. But wait a minute. What about there's another case? Right? What's the minimum share of a sukkah? How small can your sukkah be? Well, look, there is one opinion that says your sukkah can be must be at least 4 amas. If it's less than 4 amas, it's not a sukkah. So in this situation, is 5 going to be? That's a kula in this case, because if I'm able to build a 20 tefach sukkah. Oh, I thought I needed to build a 24 tefach sukkah. 4 amas would be 24 tefachim. So if I go with 5 in this case of a minimum, right? Basically, the basic breakdown is minimum maximum. So are we dealing with a maximum share, minimum share? So if it's a minimum share, going with 5 tefachim is going to be a kula and not a chumrah. He says, "I v'ikam sukkah b'arba amos the lakula, the Tanya, because we have a brisa in sukkah that taught us Rabbi Omer. Right, Rabbi holds it's a 4 by 4 amas shear of a minimum shear sukkah. Well, so what do you say about that? The answer is Abaye wasn't holding. Rav Nachman wasn't holding like that shita. That's Rebbe's shita. Karabanan. The actual shear according to the Chachamim is 7 tefachim by 7 tefachim. So the whole shear of amas don't play a role. If you follow Rabbanan, amma doesn't come into play. Right, just like if you followed 4 tefachim in the earlier case, it didn't come into play. So either you can say Abaye learns like the Rabbanon. The minimum shear sukkah is what we hold 7 tefachim by 7 tefachim, enough to hold your head, the majority of your body, and a small table. So that the rabbis calculated out as 7 plus by 7 plus. Vibas ema, that's one approach. So it is universal by sukkah because there's no other case where a 5 tefach amma will net you a leniency. Or vibas ema oilam Rebbe. He, I can tell you, really does follow Rebbe's opinion. Rav Amos come out same answer. 2 out of 3 is still a majority situation. So what Rav Nachman meant is. And what Abaye meant is that the majority of cases by Mavli and the majority of cases by Sukkah follow 5 tefachim. Does every case follow? No. You go with the majority. So you have 2 different approaches here as well. So 2 down, 1 to go. And of course the climb is going to be the most confusing, but hopefully we'll, no pun intended, plow through that. Let's see here, Rashi. Legova... Right, Shuskru Chaf Amos Lapos. Right, we mentioned that 20 Amos is the sheer apostle of Sukkah, above 20. Udofra Kuma. The issue of the bet wall. The Tan, because we learned in the Mishnah, Bayishin if a house became opened up in its roof, V'sichich Al Gabav, right, so you took out the middle holes over here, the plant, whatever it's called, right? These things, and you can mamish see the sky. So what a perfect thing, right? The people do that. They have an opening in their den, and they can go see the sky, and they make these sliding walls. So you take out the sliding walls, so you're looking at the sky. That's great. You put schach right above your opening in your den. The only trouble is you're opening your den. The schach doesn't go all the way to the end of the wall. The schach stops in the middle, and you got ceiling there. So. What's the deal there? How far can you go and still use your ceiling as being part of your wall? It's on Pesach. Bisach kosher. Okay, and you put schach kosher on top of the opening. The tikras aliyah no seres saviv. But you've got the roofing of the aliyah is extended around it, right? The schach doesn't go all the way to the wall. And it separates the schach kosher from the wall. So, which happens a lot in our sukkahs. Okay, unless you buy prefab and then you've got no problem. Im yesh bein schach kosher dolphin dal amis, if there is within the schach to your wall, okay, 4 amis psula. Okay, if you hit the 4 amis threshold, it's possible. V'yamrina dolphin akuma pachos b'dal amis. I'm sorry. V'yamrina dolphin akuma kama, and if you have dal amis all the way to the wall, you do not say dofer akuma. Pachos b'dal amis kshera. But if you have less than dal amis, then it's going to be kosher. Damrina and chazina leila haischach pasol kilu humina defanos. And the reason why is because we say we look at the bent over wall, the ceiling, as being part of the wall. So it's all continuation. So in a way, the schach did hit the wall. The wall is in a horizontal position. Normally walls are vertical. Okay, that's where dofer akuma, the halacha Moshe Messina, comes in and says, we're going to cut you some slack and allow you to play this cute little game based on halacha Moshe Messina. So it's all legit. Okay, even though the Ramah says better not to rely on all these fancy halacha Moshe Messinas, but it doesn't mean people don't do it anyway. But you're safe is one of those prefab jobs, because then that doesn't rely on anything of a fancy nature. He says shenek mula maila, okay, that it bent as it's going up, and it reaches until the schach, and that's kosher. For ein kan hefsik, okay, and there is no hefsik now, because we look at it as a wall and not as a ceiling. Rav Nachman comes to say, first wide line of Rashi, at the end of the line, we measure those daled amos as the threshold of psul as far as with amma katanos. And we're going to passel it if they're 20 tfachim. You don't have the leeway to go to 24 tfachim. We're going to cut you short at 20 tfachim, and boom, you're done, and you're dead meat if you get to that realm. But what about Vika Abba Amos? What about the Shia Sukkah, which is 4 Amos? Hanis Koros B'Meshach Sukkah, which is mentioned in the rule of the distance of a sukkah. What's the allowable distance of a sukkah? The Machsheres Le'Bekatanos, because if you're going to allow it with the smaller amount of 5 Tfachim Amos, Ikakula, that's going to be lenient. You're going to say basically you can have a sukkah of 20 Tfachim instead of 24 Tfachim. Rav Nachman Kayav Amar Kol Amos Sukkah Bekatanos, and Rav Nachman said all of the shurim of Amma is with small Amos. The Amar of Nachman Karebi Evikula. Now, if you align Rebbe with Rav Nachman, that 5 tefach Amma is end up being a kula. It's going to allow a sukkah under smaller conditions. Okay, so one answer is he holds like the Chachamim, who hold the shear is not Dal Amos by Dal Amos, but rather it is Zayin Tfachim by Zayin Tfachim. If you don't like that answer of Nachman Lo'ilam Karebi, maybe I can go with an alternative approach. A Rebbe and Rav Nachman are aligned, and Rav Nachman is a Rebbe man. V'aydam Rav Nachman Amos Sukkah B'Katanos, and that which we said that the Amos of a Sukkah are measured by small Amos, not large Amos. Lav Amos to Meshach Sukkah. He wasn't referring to that. He wasn't referring to the minimum Shir Sukkah. El Bishar Amos Kama. He's referring to the other ones, namely the other 2 that clearly. It would be machman to go with the smaller shear, and basically you're going with rove. The majority of cases would be with the minimum, with the 5 tefach amma, and yes, are there other cases where you go with 6? Yeah, but that's a minority amount of cases. 2 out of 3, the majority is with the 2. Okay, so now what we all been waiting for is the kerem case, because we love to learn about klayim, which is planting vines, a vineyard with other things, which we know is not allowed. I hope they don't do that in Stockton. Okay.
Oh, a couple of times.
Okay, so that's not acceptable. So when so the shaila is how far away do you have to be? So let's say in a situation you get a good diagram of it if you have the art scroll, right? How far do your 2 vineyards have to be away from each other, and how much space in between those 2 vineyards to allow you to plant some good old Stockton wheat? So what's the distance to separate? Now this is a case where the wheat, I'm just picking wheat as an example, where the wheat's going to be in between the 2 vineyards. You've got a box of vineyard up here, a box of vineyard down here, right? 2 fields of vineyards, and now you got this gap in between. How far away do I have to be from that vineyard to legitimize my wheat that it shouldn't be considered klayim? Okay, so let's take a look. Let's go back to the Gemara first and read the Gemara, and then we'll figure it out with the Rashis. Yeah, so Amos Klayim Ba'ama Bashisha. So when it comes to Klayim, we go the other way. When it comes to Klayim, the measurement is based on a 6 Tevach Amma, as opposed to a 5 Tevach Amma. L'may Hilchasa. So in what regard are we dealing with a 6 Tefach Amma, which here now we're extending the thing, and here when you're extending it to be Machmir, that generally works on the minimum type things as opposed to the maximum type things. So what are we referring to? We're referring to L'karachas HaKerem, U'L'mchol HaKerem. We're referring to a balding spot, so to speak, within the vineyard, which is an open space between two fields. How much space needs to separate between the wheat and the two vineyards on my two sides? And L'mchol HaKerem, which is a similar case, except that instead of two vineyards, you've got a wall and a vineyard, and you want to plant the wheat between the wall and the vineyard. So instead of having it between two vineyards, just the difference between the mechol and the karachas, is this a one vineyard issue or a two vineyard issue? So mechol is like a perimeter issue where it's outside of the kerem, as opposed to the karachas where it's in between two vineyards. So in both these situations, we're going to go with a 6 tefachama as opposed to a 5 tefachama. What do I mean? The Tanakh, because it says in the Mishnah, Karachas HaKerem, how much has to exist in between the balding spots of two vineyards to allow you to plant your grain? Beishamai Oimrim Esrim Rabo Amos. Beishamai says 24 amos have to exist. Okay, and the basic machlokes between Beishamai and Beis Hillel is going to be what's the smallest shear of a field? What's the legitimate size of the smallest field to warrant and to categorize yourself as a planting area? And the answer is going to be according to Beis Shammai 8 amos, and according to Beis Hillel 4 amos. So that's going to be the basic difference between these two amounts. So Beis Shammai Omrim Esrim Rabo Amos, you need 24 amos. And how do you figure 24? Because it's going to be. Because basically, if you're in the middle of two vineyards, each vineyard, if you're going to plant wheat, the wheat field that you plant has to have a shear of a field that can be associated with vineyard north on the north side, and the other parts of the vineyard, the other parts of the wheat that you plant have to be able to be contrasted to the southern vineyard. So you're going to need a field for the south and a field for the north. If a field is 8 amos, 8 plus 8 is 16. And then you have to separate, you need a working area for the vineyard. So you need 8 amos to plant your wheat for the northern, as it relates to the northern side. You need 8 amos for the southern side. And you also need 4 amos to separate from the vine to the wheat, because you need to work, right? You need 4 amos to get your plows to go around, and you need working space. So basically, if you have 4 amos for each side of working space, that's 8 amos, and another 16 for the two fields, 16 plus 8 is 24. So Beis Shammai takes you to 24 amos. Beis Hillel, who holds all you need is 4 amos to legitimize a field. Beis Hillel, it's 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. 2 4s for the two wheat fields, 2 4s for the two separations of the area between the vineyard and the grain. So in 16 amos, you can pull it off, and you can plant 2 small little wheat fields in between your 2 big vineyard fields. But if you go, so how do you measure the amos? When you talk about that 16 amos, okay, does it give you more, or does a lot of you go more, a lot of you go less? Let's see here. Let's just go to the other case quickly, and the perimeter case of the vineyard, where they argue. Beis Shammai will say same mathematics, only there's only one side to worry about, so you need 4 amos from the wall. You need 8 amos to plant, another 4 amos from the vineyard below you. So that's going to add up to 16. 8 plus 8 is 16. Beis Hillel says, no, you just need 4 amos from the wall to allow you not to damage the wall, 4 amos for the wheat, and then 4 amos to separate the working area for the vineyard. All you need is 12 amos. Okay? So that's going to be the machlokes. Now we're just let's define it. So now the Mishnah is going to explain the exact nature of the case of the krachas gerem, which you basically explained, but now let's read it inside. Kerem shecharavim siyoso. The vineyard had its middle destroyed, so it have a whole middle gap between two beautiful vineyards is now barren and empty. Ein shem sheish esrei amos. If you don't have 16 amos there, well, you have zera l'sham. You can't bring your wheat there because, as we just said in Beis Hillel's world, you need to have 16 amos. If you did have 16 amos there between your two vineyards, north and south, you had 16 amos. Okay, you give 4 amos to each side, north and south, to do your work, to bring your plows and to do all the work that the vineyard needs as far as the oxen carrying the plows, etc., etc. And the remaining 8 perfectly gets planted, 4 amos for the northern sector and 4 amos for the southern sector. So that's 16. We're in Beis Hillel's world now. And what's called the perimeter of the vineyard. This is a case where you're between a vineyard and a wall, as we just said. If you don't have 12 amos between the vineyard and the wall, you're not in business. You can't bring your seeds there. But if you had 12 amos distance between the wall and the vineyard, you bring your thing and you leave each side 4 amos for the work, either the 4 amos away from the wall, not to destroy the wall, and the 4 amos away from the vineyard to do your work. And the 4 amos distance in the middle leaves you shaking your head. Oh, leaves you a perfect 12 amos to do it. Okay, fine. So in these scenarios, right, we're going to have to go with 6, meaning that you need a bigger shear. You're not going to be able to start planting with a, let's say, we talk about 12, right? So 12 amos. So is it 12 times 6 or 12 times 5? If it's 12 times 6, you need a bigger shear. That's going to be machmir, right? So you need a bigger shear. So we're going to force you to have more space between the vineyard and the thing. If you went with the 5, that would be makel. Oh, I can start planting already. All I only have is 60. 12 times 5 is 60. All I have is
the 6 for all 3 areas, the work area and the
It's right. I mean, the bottom line is you need either 12 or 16. According to Beis Hillel, either 12 or 16 amas need to be there. But what kind of amma? A 5 tefach amma or a 6? So we're going to say no. A 6 here, the chumrah makes you calculate it as a 6 tefach amma, not a 5 tefach amma. Okay. But wait a minute. But okay, let's just finish the Gemara and we'll do whatever Rashi we can. But there's another aspect of Klein. There's another halach of Klein. Meaning, in other words, how much space? What's called a vineyard? How far do vines have to separate from one another in order to be called a vineyard? And because if it's not a vineyard, then you don't have to separate 4 amos. You might only have to separate 6 tfachim. Because if a guy plants one vine, mamish punked right here, he plants a vine, and a little vineyard, a little bush of grapes starts growing. So is that a vineyard? You have to separate 4 amos? No. So I want to put wheat close by. I could, because one little area or areas that are sort of bunched up together. Also, if it's so stooped up that it's not a real field, then that destroys the quality of the field.
What about when the vines start growing? You plant it and they're small, but then grapevines they blast off. And they're just growing and crawling. Is it the beginning of the planting, or is it the?
It's a good question. I would guess in its normal form. Probably, that would be my guess right now. I don't have a clear answer for you, but it's definitely a good question. I would say at the end where we're actually where a normal vine, how it looks as vineyards are. I mean, once it grows, it doesn't go back to the. You never go back to the narrow thing, do you? What? Well, you cut everything off and then you start again?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
They cut them down.
Okay, so I'm not sure.
The root basically stays there, and the vine grows new every year.
So when you start planting, you've been planting on this field for 20 years. Okay.
We only plant the root once. The root stays there, and what grows is the vine.
Okay.
So, as the product goes up the thing and then goes across.
Yeah, okay, maybe, so it could be maybe it's the root. I'm not sure. I'm sure in the climb they discussed it, but okay, we're just doing a small part of climb. Anyway, but so this halacha of allowing you to go with the minimum, in other words, it could work against you. Let's just read it. Okay, but then you have the halacha of when they're very close together, where ba'arba amos, where it needs to be separated 4 amas. If it's not a separated 4 amas, it's not called the vineyard, the lukula. Okay, that would be lenient if you go with a 6 tefach amma. The Tanan, because as it says in the Mishnah, if you have a vineyard that's planted less than 4 amas away from each other, so you have not separated them properly, you plant like a real shmendrik, and you just chop plop, you threw vine seeds all over the place, and there's no symmetry, there's no separation. So what do you do with that? And it was planted 4 amas, less than 4 amas away from each other. Rabbi Shimon Omer ain't a kerem. Rabbi Shimon says, "B'chal, it's not even a kerem. It's nothing to talk about. You can go ahead, and all you need is 6 tfachim." Now, so here, right? So if I calculate that as 6, that gives me a bigger break, right? It means I have more of a chance of not calling it a vineyard. That gives me more leeway if I go with a 6 tefach amma than a 5 tefach amma, because not calling it a vineyard gives me a lot more leniency than calling it a vineyard. So you see that this way goes the other way. Rabbi Shimon Omer ain't a kerem. Rabbi Shimon says it's not called a vineyard, and you have a lot more leeway that all you need is 6 tefachim separation from your wheat. The Chum Omrim kerem. Chum say it is a vineyard. V'rowan esem soim kilo enam keilu enam. Okay, the Chum say no, it is a kerem, because I have the ability of basically I make invisible the vines in between, and I look at it as a separated 4 amas. Even though there's a lot of stuff in between, I take my invisible glasses and basically don't see the stuff planted. So there's no leeway like this in Korban Rabbanan. So in the Rabbanan's world, Taka, you don't have an example. But in Rav Shimon's world, a 6 tefach amma would end up being a kul instead of a chumrah. So you're going to guess the answer already. Either Krabbanan Damri have a kerem, either Abaye, when he was referring to, and Rav Nachman was referring to the Rav Shimon's position that Rabbanan's position that it is a kerem, in which case you don't have this leeway, or Vibasei Malaylam Rav Shimon, or the other answer is real. I'll tell you, it's really like Rav Shimon, V'roiv Amos Kamar, and when he said that by kerem we go with the 6 tefach amma, he's referring to the majority of the cases, not all the cases. I will pick this up on Sunday, Bez Hashem.